All right, hello everyone. Charles Banfield here again from Karate Canucks. I'm back with another in our series of conversations with prominent Canadian martial artists. The goal of this series is to capture stories, insights, and opinions on various topics related to the Canadian martial arts experience. And today I'm very pleased to be joined by Sensei John Therien. So Sensei Therien's journey in martial arts began in Ottawa, Ontario in 1964. Training under George Sylvain, who was a man who would play a seminal role in his development as a martial artist. So now as a ninth dan and a Hanshi in Can-Ryu Jiu-jitsu, Sensei Therien is a highly respected teacher in the martial arts world and is in constant demand to teach seminars in North America and in Europe. In 1968, he established the Therien Jiu-Jitsu and Kickboxing schools, which have produced more than 1,000 black belts. Sensei Therien is also the president and co-founder of the World Kobudo Federation, which has evolved into a highly respected multi-style international martial arts federation with members in over 30 countries. He is also the executive director of the Canadian Black Belt Hall of Fame and became an inductee in 2010. And amongst his many, many achievements, Sensei Therien can also claim the title of manager of Jean-Yves, the Iceman Theriault, who is a 23-time world kickboxing champion. So welcome, Sensei Therien, and thank you for joining us today. It's a real pleasure to have you here.
Hey, the pleasure is all mine. The pleasure is all mine.
So I think I can add another distinction to your illustrious career. That being, you're the first non-karateka to appear in this series of conversations. So I'm not sure, actually. I was taking a bit of a guess there, but I'm not sure if you've ever taken any or done any karate training. But I know, obviously, jiu-jitsu is more your, within your bailiwick, as they say. It's more of your area of expertise. Can you give us a little bit of a background on where you're from and what prompted you to start your martial arts journey? Maybe we can uncover a couple things there.
Okay, all right. I'm sure we will. Well, I'm from Ottawa, in the capital. And when I was a young boy, I went to a judo class. I was in the gym. I was doing gymnastics. And there was a judo class going on, 4 or 5 students. And the instructors asked me, because I kept watching, I was fascinated with that. So they said, why don't you join? So I joined in, and a few months later, they were gone. I don't know where. But so a lot of my friends were doing karate at the time. And in Ottawa, karate was led by André Langelier at the time. And George Sylvain was a member there. And so was Fern Cleroux, and it was your group of Shito Ryu. It was under Masteroka for a while, and I remember Shane Higashi coming in, and this is going back in the days, but for me, for some reason, I did train in karate, but not officially in the school. I had some friends who were doing karate. I started to do jiu-jitsu with George Sylvain when there was, I think, about 8 or 9 students, and that was it in the whole city. And my friends were doing karate, so we would get together to train. There was 2 of us in jiu-jitsu and about 4 regular guys in karate. So when you asked me if I did karate, well, I sure did, because I did train, and we did a lot of kumite, and then we trained that. I never really learned katas or bankais to kata. That was not my game. And I looked horrible doing katas, but jiu-jitsu, it was my game, and I fell in love with that. And with George Sylvain in Ottawa, he was teaching in the Langelier Karate School then, and he opened his own school after that. So I've been there in the beginning, and I stayed with Mr. Sylvain until my 3rd dan, I think, 3rd or 4th dan. And then he went to teach at the college, which was police tactics at the Algonquin College. So he called me in. He said, well, I'm no longer having a school. Good luck. And then we'll get together at times and we'll train, which we did in the past. And then I trained with several other people, one of which was in England, named Richard Morris. May he rest in peace. He passed away about a year and a half ago. He was a great jiu-jitsu man, but he was very good physically, but mentally he was powerful. And a lot of things that I've learned from him, that we talk about the spirit of martial arts and different things. So, and I had met this man in 1976 in Liverpool, England. Mr. Sylvain at that time would not fly. He hated to fly. And I said, look, I want to go. And I had my own school. And I said, I'd like to go and see what's out there and learn. You're young. Martial arts is very mysterious. There's a lot of good things happening. So I went to Liverpool, and I had about 15 students with me. So we went on the training trip. First stop was Liverpool. And in Liverpool, if I was to mention some names, the people in jiu-jitsu that has been there for a while will know there was Professor Jim Blundell. And Professor Blundell was at the tail end of teaching. He was quite old, short little guy, and he had some incredible students under him. Robert Clark, who passed away 4, 5, 6 years ago, John Stedman, Richard Morris, Charlie Allmark, and the list goes on. And all these people became extremely good jiu-jitsu people. And the journey of my journey in martial art brought me to Liverpool, and then we trained, and then I went and trained with other people in Europe. Like we stayed there 4 or 5 days. Then we went to Paris, trained with Dominique Valera, and then we went to France and trained with other people, and so on. So after Mr. Sylvain was at the college, I hooked up with Professor Morris. And from there, he brought me to Europe. I used to go there for training. And then he brought me to Europe as one of the teachers for the many camps that they had. And I enjoyed teaching. I had met some great people. And since that day, I've been traveling quite a few countries, actually, 30 to 40 countries that I've been teaching at. And in martial arts, there's a bond there. There's a certain things that even if you don't speak the language, you can teach and you can learn things. So, and don't forget, I have a school in 1968. There's no computers. There's maybe 2 or 3 books out there in martial arts. And so a lot of things after that, today it's so easy, it's... if people want, they can just go to YouTube, and there's more martial arts being shown there than you can ever learn in one school. So, and I have to admit, some very, very good teachers and very good practitioners. But back in those days, everything was mysterious. Everything was, oh my God, this guy is an orange belt, that was something. And then, so you move on. And today it's different. So not necessarily better, but not necessarily worse either. But the best thing for martial art, there's a lot of good teachers out there. There's many good teachers. And we are smack in the middle of a pandemic. The sad note is I know about a lot of schools that have closed, that will not reopen. And so we're losing opportunity for the martial arts to spread, where people can go in every neighborhood now, every parish, or whatever you want to call it, as a martial arts school. But some of them are disappearing now. So I hope everything will come back in a nice way once this pandemic is over.
Yeah, hopefully it'll be, an opportunity for at least those who survive it, to retrench and actually, do quite well. But unfortunately, it's not a necessary thing, but it does happen from time to time. Obviously everything is cyclical, and businesses as well. So, but yeah, there are a number that are trying to pivot and hang on, and using kind of the media to keep teaching and keep things alive. So, if I could just touch back to 1968 when you founded your first school. You were training at that point, I guess, for 4 years, if my math is correct, 64 to 68, yeah. Almost 4 to 5 years. You obviously weren't very old when this was occurring. How old were you? You don't need to answer.
No, I don't mind. I'm 72 now.
So 72 now.
I am. And I was 19 years old when I opened my school. But you have to understand, I was helping out with Mr. Sylvain's class, and I was training. I trained between 20 and 30 hours a week with my friends, and plus the classes and so on. So I opened a school out in the country in a little village east of Ottawa called Castleman, Ontario. It's very small, and it was a one-horse town in those days. And I asked my sensei permission to open the school, and he said yes. And I went there, and from April 1st, 1968 till the end of August, but I had more people coming from Ottawa, driving an hour, and less people from that little village. So then I relocated in Ottawa.
So how did you know at 19 years old this is what you wanted to do?
I didn't know. I just love to train. And yeah, so Mr. Sylvain's a police officer. So he's got a job, and he's got a school, and he's got a family. So the school is not like today. They open in the morning, they close late at night. So I needed a place to train. I had some students, for some reason, wanted to train with me. And I said, okay, well, why don't I open a school? And we start. It was like having a hobby farm, I guess. I have friends who have a hobby farm, and now they're true blue farmers. They have more cattle, and they're growing more this and more that, because they got into it bigger and they loved it. So for me, I found out quickly that I love teaching. And if I have to give myself a pat on the back, I'm a good teacher, and I would produce good students. So it was a natural to keep going in there. But I'll tell you, it was not easy, because back in those days, people knew about judo, they knew about karate, jiu-jitsu was new, they couldn't pronounce it. And if you say, I do jiu-jitsu, and they'd say, oh, that's judo. No, I do jiu-jitsu. Oh, that's karate. No, it's anyhow. So, but it was a place for me to train. It was a place, and then I had some students that became good, and the rest is history,
So this has been your career then since you were 19, or were you doing other things as well as the?
When I was as work. Listen, if I would have tried to live with jiu-jitsu at the beginning, I don't think I would have had to go to the food bank, So I graduated from a technical school in graphic arts, which is printing. And I am the biggest klutz with tools and whatnot, but I'm very good with maths. So I became an estimator for a printing company in Ottawa. I did that since June 1967 until roughly November 1968. And then they had a change. It's a long story. There was somebody in sales who was an estimator for them. So they put him in, they gave me a job, and I said, no, I'm going to be out of here. I'm 19. I'm living at home. Life is not too hard. I have very good parents. And I said, no, I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing because I love what I'm doing. And hey, I could train. But then you sign on the dotted line, you got to rent. You got this and this and that. So you got to push and hope for the best. And then it grows slowly. And don't forget, there was so much money to be made in 1968. You were charging $25 for 3 months of training, So, so it was not the money that lured me in. It was the love of martial arts.
Yeah. So, and so you've been at this now for over 50 years, not just training, but also, as an owner of various schools and so on. I'm curious, what is it that kept you wanting to do it over the years? You may have already answered this partially, but I'm also aware that you've had a couple of devastating fires and so on at some of your schools, and yet you still carried on. I'm curious as to where that comes from.
Persistence, look, 1973, there was a fire, little kids playing with matches in the back, and I located my schools in the East End and Vanier, which was a low-income area, a little bit of a tough place, but nice people, So anyhow, the block burned down, almost all the blocks, so I lost everything. And I had opened a second school for one of my top black belts, so we relocated there for about 6 months. Then we found another location, came back to Vanier, and Vanier became the hub for us for many, many years. The other fire was 1979. I poured in every penny that I had. It was a beautiful school, and it burned down a year, just over a year later. And I was it. And one of my students was a fireman, and he was at the fire trying to put it out. If you think of a wood door, when you make a cheap wood door, there's like a frame with 2x2s. And in the middle, it was like just a plain little whatever it was. On that, I had a hook that at the top of the door, and my belt was on that hook. The door burned down except the part of the top frame, and my belt did not burn. So I said, well, maybe that's an omen to keep going. So now, and they say, you got to be careful, never two without the third one. So please, no more fires, Actually, there was a small fire, and we caught it in time. So I'm safe, you see, at one of the other locations. But then from there, I was lucky because every time something happens, it happens for a reason. And we came back and we got better at doing what we were doing. I found a place, a couple of blocks on a side street where the main school burned down in 1979, and it had 7,500 square feet. It was a second floor. So that's big for a martial arts school. But it had no AC, no parking. Now, you would go up the second floors, you had 15 steps, you had a platform, and you had 15 more steps. I'm very big on sweat equity, and I tell everybody, if we're going to work out and if you're going to be good, you got to put sweat equity. Well, sweat equity at the Vanier Dojo started. It did the first 15 steps. By the time you got to the first platform, you were already sweating. That's how hot that place was in the summer. It was kind of crazy. But that's where we produced a lot of incredible black belts, a lot of champions. People came from a lot of different countries to train with us. We had really, really a grand time doing this. This was more than, because it's a passion. You do martial arts. If you don't have the passion for it, you quit. You never do it again. But that was an incredible place. We stayed there 27 and a half years. And then we had to relocate for reasons of a better location and for a reason that building got sold.
So it was all part of the journey, I guess. The fires, the setbacks, but like you said, persistence is the key, I guess.
It is, and it's persistence, but it's also the passion. You got to remember that if I was, I have two boys today. They're 50 and 47 years old, but when they were little guys, I used to get up sometime in the night because I couldn't sleep, because how do you pay your mortgage? How do you pay for your rent? How do you do this? You do that. This is the 21st of the month, like every other person. And I'd look at my kids and I'd say, okay, now I really got to work a little bit harder. So, and sometimes there was, the first thing you do is you got to look after your family because you got to feed them. But then sometimes the rent, you'd call the owner and say, hey, I'll see you in an extra week, because we had to go somewhere with the team to compete or do this and that. So it's like anything you want to succeed. I'm a big Beatles fan, and the Beatles were in Germany in one little room writing music, practicing songs. They were young and they were full of their passion, and it's not that they wanted to create Beatlemania and be the best in the world. They wanted to be the best that they could be, and they wanted to make music. Well, I wanted to be the best that I could be in martial arts, and I wanted to do martial arts. So, and with a nice school, it had all the facilities that we needed.
When we started, I gave a little bit of a background on you, and you shortly afterwards, you mentioned a few of your first instructors, Sensei Sylvain and Sensei Langelier. I would assume that the training under those gentlemen was quite rough and tough.
You have no idea.
Well, I'm sure I don't, but I'm just curious as to, what's a typical day in the dojo with these gentlemen, and how has your approach to training changed over the years?
Okay. First of all, I was not a student of André Langelier. He owned the
Oh, okay.
school. He was the karate sensei. But Mr. Sylvain, Mr. Cleroux were students of André Langelier.
Sorry,
And he
yes.
was reading Master Oka, Shinigashi. I have a photo in my mind when George Sylvain and a guy named Jerry Berube practiced with Langelier for many years. And then when they were promoted to black belt, there was a nice photo, which I have somewhere in my files, with a very, very young Shinigashi and Master Oka. But training with Mr. Sylvain, you have to understand, he was a street cop walking the beat. Before that, he was in the military police just after World War II. Then he came to Ottawa, became an Ottawa police officer. And it was in those days that it was tough. And he was a big guy, like he was about 6 foot tall, and being 6 feet tall and weighing about 240 or 250, that's a strong boy. And he was physically very strong. But everything that he did never came naturally for him. Wally Slokey, who was the #1 top guy in the country for many, many years, he is such a natural, especially in kicking, punching, fighting, and he was great in kata, but everything came natural for him. Mr. Sylvain, not so natural. So he had to train harder than everybody else. So I would train alongside with him. And once or twice a week, we would get together for training. Now, remember, I'm a young teenager, and he's a full-blown police officer, maybe 30 years old or early 30s, strong as an ox. So you did things, and sometimes he would try to put the square into the round circle, because jiu-jitsu, you got different locks, and that didn't work. So you pay the price, but you eventually get it right. So what I get from him is that if you want to be good, and if you want to learn something, and you want to be proficient, you have to train, and you have to train hard. And he did. And when I remember another typical day on a Sunday morning, there was a guy I was training with named Jimmy O'Neill, and we were students of Mr. Sylvain. And we would come in, he say, we had open training from noon to 4 on Sunday. But he says, come in around 10, we'll train alone, just the 3 of us for 2 hours. And then when the people come in, we'll train after that. Well, I tell you, I was a teenager, but I was maybe 17, 18 at that time, okay, or close to 19. So you're basically a man. But I thought I was in Vietnam in a war somewhere. That's how tough it was, Like he was a southpaw on top of that, which you're not used to it. And then when you did some fighting, sometimes he'd let them come in because I was smaller, so it was easier for me to throw a faster kick or punch. But then he would let it come in and then counter, and boy, can that guy hit hard. So the best thing I can remember from Mr. Sylvain is that he wanted to do certain things that would work, because being a police officer, he was on the beat. And being on the beat, you don't have too much time to react. You've got to do, the situation is now. It's not next week, right? So that's why he had to reinforce his training to make sure that it would go good. But to me, that was a blessing in disguise, because I took that attitude for me. And every time we train, if I knew if it was good or not good, because he instilled that in me. When I mean by good or not good, you have to understand that certain techniques could be good for you and not for me, and vice versa. So I practiced harder on what I needed more work on, and he would do the same thing. But then I became a little bit more agile with certain things, so I had to make that work for me and learn. So the training was there. Now, having your own school and training students, there was only one way of doing it because of my upbringing. And I brought that into my classes, the sweat equity. Uh, I respect everybody, and everybody respected each other. But it was a hard game. Like we did train very hard. We trained that if we left the dojo and walked to the car and you'd be in a situation on the way down, well, you'd have a better chance to to defend yourself. You know, Mr. Sylvain instilled that if it takes, this is what he used to say: if it takes me more than 3 minutes to teach you something, and you more than 3 minutes to learn it, but I'm not sure it's going to work on my way to the car. Meaning to say everything has to be basic. Now, a lot of things in martial arts take longer period of time to learn, and like everybody else, we took the time and made the time. But in the dojo, it was the classes at those times were an hour and a half, and they were long. A lot of classes now are 45 minutes because there's lack of space, more students,
Yep.
and But when we back in the day, we had a sauna for a school almost. It was small, no windows. This is before the fires. That's just about 1,000 square feet, low ceilings. And you talk about having a good workout and sweat, but it was a different mentality. A lot of the things I was teaching and training my students to do, I would not do today because I think that it was more dangerous. It was okay to learn something, but it was more dangerous for the human body to get hurt by doing certain things than you do today. Um, and I'll mention something that everybody knows, a makiwara. We all know what they are. And we had some, and we just pounded those and pounded those. Well, now I have arthritis in my right wrist because I'm right-handed. I have arthritis in my hands, at times, and that's from striking and doing breaking and stuff.
Yep.
You have a heavy bag. Well, the heavy bag will create the same magic that you want to do. The same, it will reinforce your punches. It will get you used to it. And what happens is there's a little bit more of a give in a heavy bag than a makiwara. And so this is one of maybe several different things that we've learned over the years, that you make it better and you make it for the right reason. Right now, since May, I went to strength training. At my age, you need to build up more strength in your body and muscles. So, and I'm training I have this great trainer. He's phenomenal. He's training guys from the NHL and MLB and all kinds of super athletes. And I come in and I'm 3 times everybody's age, sometimes 4. But I look at how he trains everyone for what they do. So I'm getting him now to bring a special training into the martial arts training that we do in the jiu-jitsu that we do. And he's coming out now with a good program. He was an orange belt or green belt with me 25, 30 years ago. And he stopped and then he went into that way. Because today look, today, if you want to run a race, they have special running shoes to run a race. If you're going to be walking, they got special shoes for walking. Like everything is so specialized. You look at the NHL today, somebody said, oh yeah, back in the day they were tougher and this and that. I don't think so. I mean, first of all, the athletes today in hockey are much taller, bigger, best equipment. They're faster. They can shoot better. Maybe they don't have the same heart and soul into everything, but that's the exception won't have that. But the regular people, the mass, will be better than the stars of yesterday. And so it's the same in martial arts. I look at kids today. I go someplace and my God, they're flexible. They have good kicks. They have good power, good posture, good things. But they take martial arts as a different approach. Like, I'm going to do karate this season, or I'm going to do tennis. I'm not too sure, where when I went into martial arts, you were there. It was like the mafia. You couldn't leave, so you just went in and trained.
Yeah. Blood in, blood out, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So what you were saying there about, your experience training with the Makiwara and then moving, realizing that you could get the same basic effect without without the damage, you know, using a heavy bag and so on. Made me think of a question I've been asking lately of my guests on this on these videos. I'm always curious about eureka moments, you know, these sudden realizations that people have over time when, you know, whether it's they're learning a new skill or they're teaching or they learn something about their own bodies that they didn't realize before, you know, what their limits are. I'm curious if you've had any prominent eureka moments, as you know, throughout your martial arts career.
I think I've had quite a few, and I'll give you an example. When full contact karate came about, which is kickboxing, when all of that came together, we were all a little bit scared because we're going to hit each other full contact, right? We had Jean-Yves just made safety kicks and safety punches. And then he had a safety gear, safety helmet, you know, everything was brand new. So we had tons of padding equipment. We trained with running shoes. We had like a pad, like a goalie would wear. It's almost like a bulletproof vest because we didn't know the difference. We didn't want to break down. Well, we knew you didn't need to do that, but we knew that you could toughen up, let's say, your stomach muscles with a medicine ball by throwing it back and forth, catching it with your stomach, let it bounce, catch it again. I throw it to you, you do the same, throw it to me, back and forth. That was one of the exercise. Then in the classes, when we do the eureka moments, in the system that we teach, in the style of jiu-jitsu that we teach, there's break falls and there's throws and there's takedowns. And when it gets to throws, we would always maximize the power of throwing. And we had guys that could throw so hard, you would fall, bang, and bounce, sometimes twice, you know. Mind you, the mats we had were not that best, were not the best either. So then we realized that you don't need to push that hard for break falls. The break falls will come naturally, but the throws will be hard. But where we made mistakes at time was doing takedowns. And if you work with the wrist to bring somebody down and you try to go too hard, you can snap the wrist a lot easier, you know, a lot easy. So the eureka moments also is, I think it's, in my case, is to, if I teach you 1 hour, I want to maximize the 1 hour. I don't want to do a 30-minute warm up. I want to loosen up and then get going right away. And as we train, we start to advance, start slowly, learn how to do it, then increase the speed a little bit. Then you put the power, then you put the intensity. But it's like baseball, it's like hockey, it's like any sport that you've done. They have over the last 50 years evolved, you know, in a big way because of equipment, because of knowledge, because of coaching. And I think as a coach now, if I take a new person that's say 18-year-old, he knows what martial art is. He's seen it in rock videos. He's seen it in movies. He saw maybe a friend that was doing it, books, whatever it is, they know. But back in the 60s, you did not know too much. And there was a program on TV, The Green Hornet, with Kato being Bruce Lee, playing Kato in it. And that was, wow. This, you know, we were over the moon because the way he would kick, the way he would move. Well, today you've got so many people, not the same mentality as Bruce Lee, but like the physical agility of doing it, right? Mm-hmm. So, So to go back now and train, then I think the standard got watered down a little bit, okay? Because the classes became so good. And I look at schools that, for me, when I started to teach, you were a white belt. Well, I wanted you to be the best yellow belt in the city. Well, who cares if you're the best yellow belt in the city or you're the 149th best yellow belt in the city? You're a yellow belt, which means now you can learn something new and move up and move up. But the mentality back in those days was raw. Everything was dangerous. Everything was raw. You'd fight and it was solid. There was no equipment, nothing. Today, we are blessed with a lot of great equipment, a lot of great tatamis. We have so many great teachers, and we have we also have so many seminars going on. It's, you know, and some I know some people that seminars they will bring to you once you know your basic. They will bring something to you, and it's going to register because I know it's good for me. But maybe my teacher can't teach me that, but you can, and or somebody else can. You know? Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, seminars. To be honest, I don't know much about jiu-jitsu. I assumed it was, you know, primarily grappling. But I've learned over the years, and actually more recently, I attended a couple of seminars that were taught by Doug Knispel,
Nice guy.
and Daryl LaFrance. They were both at this fundraising event in Newmarket, Ontario, at a dojo there, and Sensei Jones's dojo there. And I was listening to them speak. You know, we were doing, you know, a lot of the basic, you know, the locks and traps and stuff. A lot of things that we do in Chito-Ryu, but just in a different way, and focusing more on the groundwork. And I was listening to Sensei LaFrance speaking, and he was saying, because he referred to himself as shorter, he's about 5'8". I don't know if that's short or not.
I know him very well. Yeah.
Yeah, and he was saying that he was at a real disadvantage because he would get picked off before he could move in to actually grab on, you know, when he was fighting in tournaments and so on. But he was teaching some of the little eureka moments that he had as to how to get in around and be able to grab onto the opponents. So yeah, but the seminars, I learned a lot from. I was able to video a bunch of it, so I was happy about that. But yeah, the seminars are definitely eye-opening when you.
They are, you know, and you talk about Daryl LaFrance. He is more of a Brazilian jiu-jitsu type on the ground. He's excellent at what he does. I've known him for 20-some years, 25 years, maybe more, you know. He's a good guy. He's with World Kobudo also, and then he's a police officer also as a trade. And Doug, I got to tell you a good story. Doug is the now generation, you know, like he's a lot younger than I am, and he's very good. He's very talented, nice guy, sweet person. And so he comes to Capital Conquest, which is a camp that I've done for the last 29 years. And it's all martial arts, and many different teachers, and there's over 1,000 people coming to train during that weekend. So a few years ago, about 4 or 5 years ago, Doug, come here. I said, you're going to teach on mat number 4. Teach on mat number 4. Because I've been keeping an eye on him. And if we don't give a chance to the new up-and-coming instructors, well, we're not doing our job. As when you're in my age, you know, you got to think that I'm going to get up one morning and it's going to hurt more than yesterday morning, you know. So you need to put stuff back. Now, he's the result of maybe I don't know if he's the 3rd or 4th or 5th generation, you know, of instructors, but he's also good, and he's very good in stand-up. You know, in stand-up jiu-jitsu, you'll learn some awesome thing from that guy, Doug. So he had a great seminars with 2 super guys. So that's good. You learn. You got your feet wet in a good way for jiu-jitsu. You know.
Oh yeah, I was looking for more, but then COVID hit, and then, you know, so maybe when it's all done, I'll seek them out again and
please do.
Yeah. One of the things you mentioned earlier was, I guess, about you made a statement about, you know, somehow over time the standard kind of gets lowered. You know, it's the style of training isn't as hard, and maybe that's a good thing. I don't know, but you mentioned, you know, about the standard.
Yeah. Well,
I kind of gets lowered, and where I'm going with this is a question I like to ask everybody. That I can anyway, is in your opinion, you know, what does a showdown mean? What does a black belt mean? And you know, is it a rite of passage? Is it a level, like a mental attitude, or is it more of a physical preparedness?
Right.
Recognition?
First of all, let me clarify what I said about then and now. Okay, both era is good, but we were talking about Eureka moment, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Then it was all guts and blood and fight hard and bing bang, you know. So that was the way we trained compared to today. Doesn't mean that today is not good. It's more sane to train today. You got to work the next day, and you got to go home. And I had doctors who were training with me, and one guy was a surgeon. He said, "I can't break these." You know, I mean, I needed to go in. So that's what I meant. It's not
Okay.
that one is better. But
Yeah.
to answer the other question now, when you say Shodan, to me, when you get your black belt, it's a mark of excellence. It's you've achieved a certain plateau that in life you can say to everybody, you know, I was a brown belt for 10 years and trained 40 hours a week. And they'll say, that's great. Or you just say, I'm a black belt in karate. Whoa, everything changes, right? Because they know that that's a mark of excellence, that you've achieved something. Some of them might think that you can handle any situation, anytime, anywhere. We know that that's not the case. So for me, a Shodan, somebody who achieves Shodan is somebody that has trained anywhere between 3 and 5 years at about 2-3 times a week, who has made a difference in his own life, who made a difference physically, mentally, in Budo and whatnot, and you get to Shodan. And there's requirements in Shodan. For example, I know in karate, there's so many katas and so many bankais, but there's also so many fights you got to do in class. There's so many, and you're not there one night, the sensei shows up and he says, all right, tonight you're all going to be doing some kumite and I'm going to take notes for your exam. That's not how it works. It's your part of your development. So it means that you paid your dues and you got to black belt. When you get to Nidan, it takes on the average a couple of years of regular training, and there's new material to learn, but there's also development of what you've learned from white belt to Shodan. There's some of it that still needs to be polished. And then you need to understand why your knee comes up before you throw the kick, you know? Well, you've learned that at Shodan. That Nidan, you got to put it in practice. You know, you got to say, okay, it's great. Like you're look like a big, strong guy. And if you're rushing me, maybe I just don't stay there to do the same kick. Maybe I shift to the side because the best block you can do is not being there. Shift to the side and then throw the kicks. So you learn from that and you start to teach. And you know, the best way to learn your technique is to teach, because you're going to have one guy who's the best. You know, every dojo has the top stars, has the average people, and have the below average people, including me, including everybody, okay? No matter, there's some people that get the same benefit. They would never be good if their life depended on it, right? But they're there every day, and they train. So now as you start to teach, you're helping out in the dojo, or you have a class that you do. And for me, after all these years of teaching, with more than 50 years of teaching, I still have my class plan that I make before each class. You know, if you tell me I walk into your dojo and you say, look, I got to run, it's an emergency, here's a gi, go do a class, I'll do well, you know. But if you say, come in my school and teach, I'm going to prepare my class. So you learn how to teach, how to develop the students, and then you learn what you got to learn your second dan. By the time you get to third dan, you've been a black belt now for 5 to 10 years. It's as simple as that, right? And so it's a secondary action. It's a natural movement for you to come in and do whatever move you want to do. It's natural. And now you start to put it in together, and you experimented for 5 years roughly. You went to different seminars to learn something different. And I would encourage everybody to go to some seminars, as many as you can. It doesn't mean you're going to leave your dojo to go learn something new. That's not true. I've come from a family of 6. There's 2 girls, 4 boys. We don't see each other all the time, but when we do, my God, we're happy and we're family, we're together. But they all have spouses, so there's a little bit in each family, and you bring something back and stuff. Martial art is the same way. You know, I've seen in the classes that we travel, and you had Alain Sailly, which is a Goshindo stylist. It's another style if you want to a mixture of Aiki Jiu-Jitsu and Judo and Jiu-Jitsu and Karate. Nice mix, and this guy is unbelievably good. Cesar Borkowski, Jean-Yves Theriault, myself, you know, like there's 5 or 6 of us, and one guy's teaching Aikido. And we're not Aikido people, you know, but we'll join in and we will learn something. We're going to be, you ever seen a kickboxer in a short pair of pants who's 23 times world champion starting to do Aikido? It's not a good fit, but he'd try, you know, and he'll come out of there. Why? Not because he's going to change everything he does. It's part of the martial arts, and that part of the martial arts come into your blood. It's a nice movement. It's a nice time to learn and do martial arts, no matter what the style will be.
So do you have a favorite technique or a favorite concept that you either like to practice or like to teach?
I'll tell you what in the system or style or discipline that we teach, the jiu-jitsu is based on blow, strike to weaken the person, throw, bring him down, and strike again to make sure it doesn't come up, or at least to gain the advantage. So to bring him down, because of my height, I'm 5'6", 5'7", and if I do a hip throw, I can do a heck of a hip throw, which is powerful, which is fast, and if I'm in a certain situation. So over the years, because if it's from the rear, I can do a hip throw, which is a bread and butter throw for me, and then I can do an outer reaping throw. So to Gary, if I come in you from the front, which is moving in and reaping your leg. Yep. So those 2 throws, to me, are the best 2 that I can use in almost any technique. Now, some other guys might use more shoulder throw, whatever they want, but for me, that's the best 2. And then when it gets to striking, there was a time that my hands, I have good hands, they're fast and they're still powerful, so it's pretty good. When I was younger, I could kick. I was very agile with kicks. I could do nice front kicks, round kicks, side kick, hook kicks. It was easy. I was young. You know, when you're young, you can do anything. Trust me. You'll see what I mean in a few years, you know. But so now you have to reevaluate the situation on what you're going to do in a self-defense situation. If I do a demo, it's different. I can do whatever I want to do. But in a real situation, so your front kick becomes a very useful kick. And then what they call a shin kick, taking the instep of the feet and striking on the shin of the legs. You know the time or the day when you walk too fast and you hit your shin bone on the side of the coffee table and you learn a whole bunch of Christian words almost came out, you know. I know exactly. Well, you can create that with the kick. You know, it's simple. And if I was to show that to somebody that's 80 years old, they could do it. Because it's this much off the ground, you know, it's easy, it's simple, but then it's your approach on a lot of things that you do. So punching, whatever with the hands, I still have a good punch. The bones are not too brittle, you know, the wrists or something else, but palm heel strike, you shoot your leg, that's fine. But for the kicks, I keep it to front kick and I keep it with the shin kick. Those are pretty good techniques. And what is natural for me is there's some certain locks, 1 or 2 locks that's easier, but also some strangulation. UFC, MMA, and they got the rear naked choke or whatever they call it, right? Well, we've been doing that since the 60s and it's powerful. I mean, you apply it and it's within 2 to 4 seconds, you start to get results. You know, you keep applying it, the guy's going to pass out. And you keep applying it, God forbid, because the person's gone, you know. So I enjoy these strangulation. I think, the right size of arms to apply that. Like they're short and stocky, you know, and they're a little bit muscular. So those are good. But then in what we do, there was a time I just love sparring. I just love kumite. I do less and less for many years now because it hurts more now because of the age. And if you and I are training, bang, and we get it in the action that we're doing, it's okay. You don't feel it. But then the next day you wake up, your body doesn't wake up. It takes a while, So everything is everything is the same. Last year I took Jean-Yves Theriault out of retirement in November 2019, and I said, you're going to have a fight with Ben Ladouceur, who's the current heavyweight amateur world champion. He said, are you kidding me? I've been retired now for 25 years. I said, I know. But it's to raise money for Make-A-Wish Foundation. They approach us. We need to raise 10 grand. We raised $25,000. So everything is fine. But throughout the training for the fight, 5 days before, he couldn't walk because he pulled a certain muscle. So just to tell you that age creeps over. This is sharp. Your heart is good. The body, not so sure, So that in martial arts, so to resume one technique or two, you're going to start to do what you've done all these years that is more natural for you. And then you're going to condense 20 different things down to maybe 2 or 3. And it's going to happen on its own. Don't kid yourself. You just don't say, okay, I'm going to pick this technique and this technique, and those are going to be my 2 favorite. Doesn't work that way. You have your favorites. I get it. I understand. But then you'll find out that something you're doing is more natural because you've done it maybe 150,000 times, and finally it's there, So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So you touched on Jean-Yves Theriault and getting ready for the exhibition bout and so on. I'm really curious. How did you get connected with kickboxing and promotion? Because that was a large part of has been a large part of your career over the last number of years.
Well, everything is. Listen, it's the journey, right? I start to teach. There's a 17-year-old kid. First of all, the Theriault family is 6 brothers. 5 of them are black belts with me. 1 was yellow belt or something. That was not for him. So Victor Theriault was very, very good fighter, extremely good point fighter. And Victor brings his brother Jean-Yves. Well, Jean-Yves comes up, but Jean-Yves is an introvert. And especially back in those days, he's 17 years old. We all we have hair, and it's very long, And he makes it to yellow belt. And then I don't see him. So I said to Vic, where's your brother? He said, he has no money. He's not going to start training. He's got no money. I said, well, tell him to come and see me. I said, keep training, sign up the membership agreement, can pay me later. I still have that, so that's one for me. I will never give it back anyhow. So he started to train. But then in those days, we fought in open karate tournament. We're late 60s. We are 70s. There was some good, strong karate tournament. So we fought in a lot of those. And it went to semi-contact. What is semi-contact? I'll never figure it out because you're going to throw a punch or a kick, and you know damn well you're going to throw it, right? So Jean-Yves had he didn't do that well in karate tournament because he would get disqualified. He was a natural to strike and strike hard, I remember one time we had an inter-club tournament and he fought a guy named whatever his name is, and there's no safety equipment, right? And he hit the guy in the chest bone. He cracked the chest bone. That's how hard he hits. It's amazing. So anyhow, then that changed to full contact, which is kickboxing. So I had about 10 or 12 guys in the dojo. They said, yeah, we wanted to do that. So I started to train them. And in about 6 months down the road, they were better than me. They knew more than me. So I got a special trainer to come in, but there was not enough fights. So I said, oh, shit, well, I'm going to start promoting it. So I started to promote. no idea what the hell I'm doing, except I know that I got to pay the bills, and you got to pay this, you got to pay that. You learn the hard way, but it was the same way as running a school. Remember that question? I just ran a school at 19 years old because I enjoy what I was doing. So now
Yeah.
my job as the leader of the dojo was to go to tournaments with the guys so they could compete. And then when they started to fight in kickboxing, there was not enough fights. And I said, well, I'm going to start to promote so the guys can fight. Then a few things happened is I got good at it and they got good at what they're doing. And then more people wanted to come. So now you got to go to bigger venues. And now you're spending a good chunk of dollars to make it happen. And if you promote a student and he's going to be extremely good with the bow, well, you better teach him the bow. You better fix it in a way that he's going to be better with the bow. Well, kickboxing was the same way. We had jiu-jitsu and fighting, and then jiu-jitsu, fighting, and kickboxing. You know, it was the same to us. So we started to develop that. We had some good fighters. We had, I think at one point, we had 4 guys in the top 10 in their division. And then Jean-Yves was the one who won the world championship. And he had 77 fights, all pro fights. Think about that one. I'm not going to go too deep because I know one day he's going to do your talk show over here. You're going to have a lot of great questions for him, and he's a super guy. So he started to develop, and then as you get better, he got better, and I got better. And then we put that together. You have to understand that Jean-Yves Theriault and 2 or 3 guys are best of friends. We're very close knit. We're like family. We're still together, you know, and stuff. So the sport of kickboxing was under the PKA then, Professional Karate Association. And Joe Corley from Atlanta was the guy in charge. And then in 74, they had the first World Championship. They had 4 winners. Joe Louis was heavyweight, Jeff Smith was lightweight, Bill Wallace was middleweight, and Duanes, a Mexican guy, was lightweight. And there was only 4 divisions. That was done in LA. Wally Slokey fought on that. And so all of that started to move about. And you know, when you have a movement in something that you like and that you do, you want to be part of it. And I would always train the guy and say, guys, today Vanier, which is a small community, tomorrow the world. Well, they still tell me that because we did it. So, but we had to train so hard to get there. And there's one thing I never had to say to Jean-Yves Theriault is, hey, you got to train, you got a fight coming up. He always trained, you know, and you never had to tell him. I said, you take care of what you have to do and I'll take care of what I have to do. And we'll see you down there and it's going to be good. So the PKA came and got me because I understood how all of this was working. I became successful in things that I've done because I put my heart and soul in anything that I do. If I'm going to be a sweeper in the dojo, I'm going to be the best sweeper in the dojo. Give me time. I want to learn. I want to be the best. So it doesn't matter what you do. So it was the same thing for promoting. I enjoyed it. We met some great people. We had fun with it. That was the stepping stone to MMA. Don't forget, you know. So yeah, it was good.
No, that's great. Yeah, and I hope you're right. I hope I am able to get the Iceman on here at some point.
I think you will. I'm sure.
Okay, well, let's. If you could put in a word for me, I'd appreciate it.
We'll do.
Definitely a hero of mine for sure. So over the 50 plus years that you've been training and teaching, and running schools and hosting events and promotions and so on, is there anything that if you could do it over again that you would have done differently? Or there's a second part to this too, and you can choose to answer either part or both if you want. So if there's anything you could do over again, would you do it differently? If there's anything like that, or what do you know now that you wish you knew sooner when you were younger or earlier?
Now that's the question I want to answer.
That's it. Okay, good.
Charles, I don't think I would change too many things, because that every step that I took made who I am today and helped me to get better and understand the world and understand my game and everything else. So not too many regrets, few little ones maybe, but I don't know. But what the second part of the question is, if I knew then what I know today, my God, I would have cut a lot of corners in training to make this right faster, to recuperate faster, how to train, how to do shift work. It's the story of life, you know. It's like I have one of my brothers just retired, but he built homes and he did renos and stuff. And he started in business. He was about 24 years old, and not much of an education, but given tools, brother, and he was gone, you know. And he's built homes that are worth like millions of dollars, like, you know. But in order to get there, he had to be an apprentice. He had to carry somebody's lunch, you know, and do this and do that, and that's how you learn. Well, it's the same thing in martial arts, you know. When I trained with Mr. Sylvain, I knew this. On the Thursday night after the last class, it was sweeping the floor time after every class, but the last class you sweep and you had to wash the mats and the floors. Not once did he ever ask me, because I did it every Thursday. That was kind of part of what you do in the dojo. You got to be proud. So because I did that, I got that done in my dojo. You know, somebody, you know, you do it, somebody takes it, somebody runs with it. But if only, if at 72 years of age, I've been doing this for over 50 years, and I bring 72 years when I'm 22 years old. Lord, I mean, I don't think it would have been as painful financially. I don't think it would have been as painful physically. And I think, would have I been that much better? I think so, and I should. But the fact that you don't cut corners and that you learn, you walk out of there a much better person than if you did cut the corners.
So the price to pay for wisdom is worth it, is what you're saying, you know, without cutting corners.
A1, yeah. And that comes from my childhood. I want to give you a little story on that. When I was a kid, I'm the oldest boy. So my father was a cheesemaker, great dad. He worked for Seal Test Dairy, night shift, and he was a jack of all trade for other stuff. And we were low income area. So my father would say, I'm going to cut some wood, because we had a wood stove, and you're going to pile it neatly in the basement, and then you can go and play with your friends. Well, I want to go and play with my friends, you know what I mean? I don't want to do that. He says, no, do that. And so I told my buddies, said, I'll meet you as fast as I can. So my dad said, let me show you how this is done. Well, he left, and I just threw the wood on top of each other. I did not pile it neatly, because there's a way to pile wood. So I come, I run upstairs. My dad said, where are you going? He said, I got to double check. And he went, started to shake the wood. Everything fell. He said, start again. That day I learned that if you do something, do it right the first time. It's a lot easier. Don't cut corners, right? So that was one of the life lessons that my father gave me. And I use that because I was not happy and I was not smiling then, but today I can look back and say, thank you, Father, you know. So it's the same thing in martial arts, you know.
And in life, I'm sure, you know.
Oh, in life, big times.
Yeah. So for somebody who is not a martial artist, and either they are looking to, you know, join a dojo or something for either themselves or, you know, as an activity for their children, what advice would you have for anyone that's looking to join a dojo or start an art? Okay.
First thing is, most of the time you don't know the difference between all of the martial arts. You know, there's karate, there's MMA, there's jiu-jitsu, whatever. My advice is look in your neighborhood, find the schools that are available, go and watch, and then ask questions. Ask what it costs, how many times, how long they've been open, and the background of the instructors. But don't watch one class, watch 2 or 3. Then, if you think that you've narrowed it down to the one school and you think this is what I'd like to learn, then just go in and take a 1-month membership if you can. Because after a month, you will know if you like it or if you don't. And there's many good schools, many, many good schools, but there's a few of them that I would think may not work for you for the reasons that whatever they are, you know. And I know in Ottawa, we are blessed with so many great schools, but I know of a few that it's a little bit shaky, you know, and it wouldn't be for me. So when I bring my grandkids to that school, that's another way to look at it. But visit, ask questions, check them all out. Like if there's 3 schools in your area, don't look at the first one. And if you say, wow, this is the one, well, still go see the other 2. Reconfirm that your wow is going to be stronger, and then try out a month. And then after a month, you should know. And then when you try a month, you can talk to the other students that are there. If you talk to the black belts, they will give you some very good answers. But talk to the yellow belt and the orange belt. They're new also. And see how they fit in and how they like it. So that would be my advice to you. Or speak to somebody that you can trust, somebody that you know that is doing martial arts, and ask them to refer you to a school. Then repeat what I said, you know, and rinse and repeat.
To repeat, yeah. So any red flags that you would suggest that people look out for as well when they're checking out a dojo?
The red flags are very simple. It's not just the money, and it's not just the length of the contract. That's some people. Look, I have friends that can buy me out and throw me in the garbage. They have that much money, you know. So, but it's the red flags will be when you watch the class, how the instructors conduct themselves. Are they respectful to the students? Are the students respectful to the teacher? Like the word respect comes here big times. I've seen, you look at classes, and if you've got a bully of an instructor, like remember the Karate Kid, so if you've got a bully attitude and you watch that, you say, that's not for me. That is definitely not for me. And especially if you're a parent and you've got kids, now that's another story. Kids learn differently. And if they don't enjoy the classes, they're going to leave. If they like it and the personality is good, they're going to stay.
So respect.
And respect also, like some schools would have all the bells and whistles, and they're beautiful schools. That's fine, as long as it's clean, and as long as the teacher, the conduct of the instructors and the managers and whatever it is with the people there, because you're going to be one of them. So.
Mm-hmm. Well, this has been a real pleasure. Really appreciate you taking the time to join me today. And before we finish, just want to ask you: is there anything that you wanted to add that we didn't cover, or you want to share any information? Like, where can people find you, your associations, your dojo?
You can find me on Facebook, John Therien. It's very easy. It's very simple. If you have any questions, please do so. Don't be afraid. Don't be shy. Reach me on Messenger. I'll be more than happy if I can help with anything. And one of the things of the Brotherhood of Martial Arts is when you get to be at a certain level and you've done certain things, you have to pass it forward. And that's why doing your show, well, I enjoy it, because you're doing a great job. And what you're doing now is like Gary Legacy, the PKCC show that they have. Mm-hmm. They are cataloging the history of Canada, and you're doing the same. And
Yeah.
at some point before we all die and get away, you know, like the Canadian Black Belt Hall of Fame has about 120 and about inductees, approximately 120, 125. And I would say that 1/3 of them have passed away. And some of the legends and the pioneers, and you know, 1 month ago, Mr. Sylvain passed away. He was 84 years old.
Yes, yes, I heard.
Yeah, Richard Morris, who's not with the Canadian Black Belt Hall of Fame, a year and a half ago at 84, he passed away. He was living in London, England. Marc Asselin from Quebec City, 79-year-old, passed away of COVID last summer. He's gone. This is all recent. Fern Cleroux, 2-3 years ago, gone, passed away. Mas Chiroka, a few years ago, gone. So somehow the story, if we were Native Indians, the elders would pass the story to the young ones. And when they become the elders, well, that's what you're doing. And that's why it's even better than a book, because they'll go to your website or they'll go to your YouTube channel. They'll be able to click in and find out what the roots of the martial arts are in Canada and abroad, you know. So you're doing a great job. Me, I'm just here. It's my pleasure. I just talk. That's simple, but thank you for what you're doing. This is very precious. And get this, in 25, 30 years from now, I'm gone. Wallace Loki is gone. Caesar Barkowski, he's still around. He's a young guy, you know. He's fine. But all the other guys that you're doing the interviews and you're working with them. And there's another factor too. You get to a certain age. I've forgotten more than I still remember. You know, I've forgotten so many things. And somebody will say something. We have our bubble, which is 4 people. This is my wife, myself, and a good friend. And they came in for dinner last week. And we're sitting at home, and my wife starts and says, "Remember that? Oh, yeah. So I start to tell that story. And then something comes up. But it's it's stories that I had completely forgotten, you know?
Yeah.
Things that happened years and years ago. And it's, it is. So conserve it. Package it, because it's worth something.
Okay. Well, again, really sincerely appreciate your time and really enjoyed speaking with you. And I was really looking forward to this because I had seen some of the other videos that were done on the punch, kick, choke, chat videos, which I love. I watch those all the time, and they've had some great people on there, including yourself twice. So, but yeah, I was really looking forward to speaking with you because, you know, the attitude that you have and
Thank you.
Outlook on life is really positive, and I think it's something that more people should be aware of, first of all, but also maybe put into their own practice. So, again,
thank you so much. It's, you know, it's martial arts. I was blessed. When I was a kid, everybody was in music. It's the 60s, you know, British invasion, the Beatles, whatnot. And I had a lot of friends that were musicians. And I tried, but I couldn't keep a note. And I had no money to buy instruments, you know, like everything was bad. Martial arts was my way of enjoying life, helping people, making better, you know. And I got paid so well for doing it. When I see somebody smiles. Last week was my birthday, and I had over 1,000 comments of happy birthday wishes online. Not likes. I don't count likes. Just comments, and I answered every single one of them, you know. So it's long, but some of the comments I had there were from students that trained with me 50 years ago.
Yeah.
And they say that because they had trained their life, we had contributed to their life soul. So that's good. And that's the magic of the martial arts.
That's a great way to leave this this conversation. So again, thank you very much, Hanshi. It's been a real pleasure.
we'll get together, I'm sure, in the future. Take care. Keep up the
All
good
right.
work, Charles. Bye-bye.
Okay.